This is the Brozilla Podcast, Episode 1. Tonight, we will be covering Godzilla 1954 and the American adaptation, Godzilla King of the Monsters, starring Raymond Burr. What is up, Goji fans? This is Goji Fan 93. Sorry. Welcome to the Brozilla Podcast. I'm here with Creationzilla, also known as Will, and then Tyrant Gojira, also known as Tyler.
Sup?
And my name is Christian from Son of Sibo. And that being said, I have one question that I've really been wanting to know the answer for the 20 years of life that I've existed. Why is Red King called Red King? He is not red.
I believe the only time he was red was in Ultraman Powered, and that was the only for the male Red King.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's what they did. Because, that was an interesting dynamic. They did do the female and the male Red King. But, that's a really good question, though. I don't know why they decided to call him Red King. Or why they decided to model him after a cob of corn.
Listen, if I'm not wrong, AJ Tsuburaya, he is passed away already?
Yes, I believe so. I think that was a couple years ago, actually.
I would, and it's a very sad situation, but I would say we need to get the Ouija board out and we need to figure this out. Because I will not rest until I figure out the answers to this. But either way, I wanted to open up on a little light note. But that being said, I've been thinking about this, and I've been seeing a lot of complaints about recent kaiju media, and it's really made me think, being a Godzilla fan especially, but I mean a kaiju fan in general, I feel like this moment is one of the best moments you could be. We have Godzilla vs. Kong coming out basically next week. Godzilla Singular Point, for me, is looking great. Shin Ultraman's coming out later this year. And I'm sure there's stuff I'm missing. There's a Kong Skull Island anime. That's pretty cool. Pacific Rim The Black just came out. I have not watched it yet. I don't know. I'm just listing off things. I feel like people like to find things to complain about, but I'm really thinking, this is, one of the best times to be a kaiju fan.
Yeah, it's really interesting how things have turned around, because I would say after 2004 with Final Wars up until 2014, that was kind of a sucky time to grow up as a kaiju fan. You know, we weren't getting any of the Godzillas from Japan, really, and there just wasn't any media, but now here we are. Since about 2013 with the release of Pacific Rim, we have just had... I think we've had some sort of kaiju film every single year since. Yeah. So it's just kind of funny how it went from one of the worst times to be a fan of the franchise to we are living in what could be considered another golden age of monsters.
A new kaiju renaissance.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like with the Roaring Twenties and the what do they call it? The Great Depression. It's like that, but the opposite. The Great Depression, the dark times, was 2004 to 2014, and then we suddenly got. Well, maybe that means there's another Great Depression coming around.
No.
Don't jinx it. Don't.
Where's some wood? Knock on wood.
All I'm saying is it depends on how Godzilla versus Kong does in the box office, but like literally there's nothing else coming out, so I'm pretty confident that they're gonna make some money. And I get like that not all the theaters are out and all that, but they're definitely making money through HBO Max. I just saw that in the UK, where they don't have HBO Max or the theaters open, they're putting it on rental, like a pay-per-view.
Oh,
So like,
okay.
they have, you know, I think Canada's kind of shorted right now, but hopefully they'll announce something soon for them. But
Well, and think about how many people just got HBO Max solely to watch Justice League. Their month's not over yet, so I mean, they'll probably be tempted to, even if they didn't get HBO Max to watch Godzilla vs Kong, they'll still probably end up doing it because they've got that subscription for a month.
I mean,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, I feel like the movie will do decent in America because, you know, the virus and all that, people will be more worried. But overseas, I feel like it's going to do tremendous, like, especially with Asian countries.
Japan's basically open. Like, they dealt with the COVID situation, and I think they're mostly good right now. Like, they're mostly open.
Yeah, China's going to eat that movie up. China loves giant monster movies. They, like, China was actually the biggest point of revenue for both Rampage and the Meg.
Oh, really? That that makes sense. I believe that. Yeah, I mean, you can't really like discount a movie's box office until it runs through China, because like China, like I think Godzilla King of the Monsters did really poorly in the States, and then China brought it into profit territories. It still was barely in profit, but
with King of the Monsters, the problem was timing. You got all these movies coming out, Detective Pikachu, Avengers. It was sandwiched between every one of them.
Yeah, that was very bad timing, and that's why I think there's literally no other movies competing against Godzilla vs Kong. Like the closest thing would be Justice League, but everyone's already watched Justice League who wants to watch it. So like, and it's not a competition. If you get HBO Max, you can watch them both. Also, Justice League is not coming out in the theaters. So if you want to see a movie in the theaters and you have that itch, Godzilla vs Kong is your movie.
I mean, I think Godzilla vs Kong is going to be the first movie I've seen in theaters since Sonic came out.
Dang, that's quite a little while. But yeah, for me, I can't think of the last time I might have. The last movie I might have seen in theaters might have been Godzilla King of the Monsters, actually.
Jeez, you said mine was a long time?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I'm like, oh, you know what? You're kind of... It actually has been a while. Because, I mean, I had chances where I could have seen movies in theaters, but nothing caught me. Nothing had me. And then COVID hit. And I believe, Godzilla vs. Kong was supposed to come out in 2020. There were some other movies I wanted to watch that were going to come out in 2020 that were, that kind of... That was an unfortunate situation, to be sure.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy to believe it's been a year now. But also another thing I was hearing, or I mean, I heard mentioned that I was thinking about today, is that so you would think the overlap between Godzilla and anime fans would be pretty big, but it's not really. And it's kind of interesting that they had the Godzilla anime trilogy, but the general opinion on that isn't too great. I haven't gotten through them, but Godzilla Singular Point seems to be hitting those right anime notes, if that makes sense, to where I think that that might be just as big, if not a bigger opportunity for Godzilla as a whole to get a new audience, because you have a lot of these people who just watch the anime as it comes out, and if the writing comes out, if it's a good show, you might have new Godzilla fans. And I don't know how much y'all have seen. I watched the trailer a couple more times. I'm in love with that opening already.
The opening,
but there was something I noticed, and I wanted to see if y'all caught it. And I'm sure y'all have. But they mentioned that Anguirus, or I think they call him Anguillus. I don't know, whatever you want to say. Well, I'm going to call him Anguirus.
Hey,
they say something, something about Anguirus. Maybe Anguirus is not like maybe Genghis is looking directly into the future or the past or something like that. And it's like,
Yeah, I did see a clip with something like that.
I have no idea where the story's going, and I'm so excited because like they showed us so much action in there in that last trailer. Like the first two trailers were like slowly showing us a little bit. This last trailer kicked it out of the ballpark. I'm so excited, and I'm like, I think, one thing I should say is for y'all listening at home, we attempted to record this once. There were some major technical difficulties. So this discussion we've kind of already briefly had. However, I need to mention that I was not really into Singular Point from what I saw of the first two trailers until this last trailer. And now I'm probably as excited, if not more so, than Godzilla vs. Kong.
With Singular Point, my point of view is it's pretty much a loose adaptation in a way to the prequel novels, the anime trilogy. Like, it has the same theme going for it, a kaiju infestation, which is a terrifying prospect, and from what we've seen so far, they're executing it pretty well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree on that point. And I was initially kind of upset when I heard that it was coming out so close to Godzilla vs. Kong, but now that I think about it, that might be a genius decision on their part, because how many people are going to be riding off of Godzilla vs. Kong and want some more monster action? And what's Japan gone and done? They've gone and ordered I think it's a 12 or 13 episode series of what seems like every episode's going to have some action. I mean, I don't know if you both saw that Rodan clip. I think, Chris, you shared it with me, but even that little bit of stuff was super interesting. It's more than just your standard, big, scary, evil monsters attacking. It seems like there's something more going on.
Right. It seems like, it seems more like a crisis, like...
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to... Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
Alright, I'll make it fast. I don't want you to forget your thing. It seems not that a kaiju is a crisis on its own, but it seems like there's something going behind the scenes that we don't know. Like there's some sort of dark, agenda going on.
Yeah, there's some huge mystery here, and I'm very excited to see it. But from what I've seen of just the action scenes, as kaiju fans, a lot of times we kind of write off, or we'll forgive the human story a lot of the times if we get our monster action. The mainstream audience is not like that, and especially like the anime fans. Anime fans do generally, they enjoy spectacle for sure, but generally anime, especially compared to like American cartoons, and honestly a good amount of media, to be honest, in my opinion, has a higher writing standard. And I think that if they can bring that here, I think that'll, I kind of see the bits of it already. I see the makings of a good anime. And one thing I wanted to point out is, however the show comes out, even if the show comes out really bad, I still think the way they're going about it is the way they should go about human storylines in a Godzilla movie, anime, whatever you want to say. The main characters seem heavily involved, and especially the idea of they built this jet jaguar to fight, so you get the human story integrated. It's not we're cutting from humans to monsters. No, it's it's kind of obviously you're gonna have a scene of Godzilla where it's gonna be separate from the human, but for the most part they are one story, and I like that. I think that this whole your monster movie has to be let's jump from human scene to monster scene. I think it's a formula that's been overdone, especially in the Godzilla series, and I think that I really am excited to see how Singular Point does with this.
I feel like the only time in Godzilla they've achieved it, besides possibly Singular Point, believe it or not, was the 1998 animated series.
Yeah, they definitely had really good human characters. They had likable humans to where when they were on screen, you didn't really feel like, oh, okay, come on, let's get to the monsters. They had enough character and substance to them that they could carry the show for, animation budgets or whatnot until Godzilla could show up. You were left entertained.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that there's definitely two ways to go about it. I think, like, with the animated series, I would still feel like it's almost kind of that type of typical Godzilla setup, but I think the difference is you have good characters that you like. And I think that there's two ways to go about making the humans interesting. One is you write good characters. But as we've seen, for example, the MonsterVerse is having a little bit of trouble with that. However, the other way is, like, the Singular Point, from what I can tell, we don't know much about the characters, but I'm interested just because the characters are actively involved with the plot. But another thing is, like, there's Godzilla movies that show that working. I think Godzilla against Mechagodzilla has good human characters that are very active in the plot, like actually piloting Godzilla's opponent. And then Godzilla Final Wars, while the characters are basically, like, there's basically no characters. Like, the writing is not really there. It's just whatever happens, happens. But the characters are, like, they're involved in the story, and when they're on screen, they're doing something interesting. Whatever you want to say about Final Wars, because the Final Wars I wouldn't say is necessarily a good movie. You're not going to watch Final Wars and be bored, and I think that's the biggest thing people have problems with the monster movies and, like, the MonsterVerse is sometimes the humans can be boring when, like, they have no character and they're just sitting there. But let's say you throw in, humans piloting a mech, or Matrix-style fight scenes, or Dawnfly. Like, those type of things can liven up the human scenes. Now, again, we would prefer to have good writing and good characters, but there's ways to... It's almost like a fail-safe. Like, now that we see what is happening in the anime with the characters and how involved they actually are, like, even if those characters aren't the greatest characters, we'll still be entertained by those scenes, hopefully, because I think I've gotten my point across. Essentially, give your human character something to do besides politics.
Yeah, I agree. I'd rather have characters if they're going to be poorly written, regardless of whatever, at least let them be entertaining.
Yeah.
I don't want to be stuck with the boring background cast. And, I would kind of agree that is kind of the MonsterVerse's problem. I think the MonsterVerse has a couple of characters here and there that are great, they're written well, but then everybody else is underwhelming, especially compared to those characters that are well done. I think Kong Skull Island probably has the best overall cast of characters. Whether or not they're, written well or not is up in the air, but I was entertained by the human cast the entire time of Kong Skull Island, that's kind of debatable in the other films.
What I would say with Kong Skull Island is, I think, as much as you're correct, it also points out the problem with the monster versus human writing. Because, okay, so this is a line I have for a video I'm still working on. I need to get done. But the Kong Skull Island retrospective, this line I had written, I felt genius about it. But essentially, I pointed out that despite Kong Skull Island having Samuel L. Jackson, Tom Hiddleston, John C. Reilly, John Goodman, some of the really great actors, even Brie Larson's pretty good in that movie. All these actors, they forget to write for those actors. So Kong Skull Island has an entertaining human characters because these actors stood up to the, they came up to the challenge, and they outdid themselves, and they did good performances. But I mean, if you really look into it, besides, in my opinion, John C. Reilly, his story, as brief it is pretty touching. I do like that part. Besides that, like, there's nothing interesting. There's nothing interesting there. What it is it's the same thing with Godzilla Final Wars, where while you're watching, you're not thinking about that because you're thoroughly entertained by what's going on. There's no stop. It's go, go, go. And right. I think that's good. But, again, I would say, personally, I think the best written film out of the MonsterVerse trilogy is Godzilla 2014. But even it makes some sketchy decisions. Yeah. And really, for me, I enjoyed that film quite a bit. I think that the writing is pretty good, but I think the writing is good plot-wise, and I think the characters are still lacking for the most part.
Like, here's the thing in those MonsterVerse films. If you're even slightly interesting, you are dead.
Yeah.
Serizawa, Brody's father, John Goodman's character. In the deleted scene, Admiral Stans was killed off by Ghidorah.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, it was a deleted scene. He recorded a final transmission before dying. Also, Samuel L. Jackson's character. All the interesting characters, it's a death sentence in this universe. Monsters hate well-developed characters.
Okay, well, so
they always kill them off so early, too.
John C. Reilly is actually an example of someone who survived, but I think he's technically dead because he was old. But he survived his movie.
I mean, he survived because he's comedic relief.
Yeah, but like, I don't know about y'all. Like the ending little highlight reel at the end of Kong Skull Island, I felt like had more story than the rest of it because like it had like that, you know, it was showing him going home and all the little things.
It was
like, you know,
actually
seeing his
really
family.
touching.
That was touching.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. No, I want to point something out though. When I'm saying all of this, I think all the monster scenes in these movies, like not even a few of them, I think almost all of the scenes have good story, if that makes sense, and even good character. Like I think Godzilla, as weird as it is to say, is a good character. I think Kong and Kong Skull Island are good characters. I think it's just that they're the, you know, how it's structured, they are sort of the afterthought. So we look at the actual human characters. Does that make sense? Like I think the writing is good in the monster scenes.
I'm seeing what you're saying.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's kind of funny thinking that these characters who are gigantic, they can't talk. Some of them can't even really express their emotions very well. Almost act and perform better than these human characters do in these films.
Yeah, in a way, like, these monsters are characters. That's something a lot of the general audience forgets. And I think it's because they don't appear as often. People, you know, like Christian said, turns to the human characters to fill in the gaps, and they kind of falter in that aspect.
Yeah.
Alright, so one thing I'm going to look up real quick now. I should have had this on hand. That's some unprofessionalism by my part. Okay, yes, I found it. So, have y'all guys seen the early reactions for Godzilla vs. Kong? Not reviews, they're not allowed to give details, just the early reactions of the people who got to see the film.
I heard they're mostly positive, though it's the same criticism. The human characters falter, but the monster scenes are spectacular.
So are we talking like early completed version of the film, or are we going way back a couple of years, like test screening reactions?
This is March 21st is when all these tweets come out. And these are all what the film is. It's just like the pre-screenings that, like, I'm sure you heard some people actually did get to see the film early. I don't know who or when, but some of these people tweeted off about it. If y'all don't mind and you're interested, I'm going to read a few of them that are noteworthy, and then we can discuss it briefly.
Sure.
So this first one. As expected, and probably as it should be, the Titan fights are the best parts of Godzilla vs. Kong. Adam Wingard definitely has the eye to make the most of those moments. Still, don't think they've nailed how to incorporate human characters, but the top-notch ensemble helps. Which, okay, that literally kind of describes exactly what I was talking about with Kong vs. Skull Island and the rest of them, so still same problems it's looking like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes, a top-notch cast does not matter if you don't have good characters.
Right.
You could get the best actors of all time, and they will act in a way that improves the characters better than they were just on the script. But you're kind of wasting the potential of those actors if you're not writing more in-depth characters for them to portray on the screen.
Yeah, I think, one, you're really just distracting people from the fact there is no character. And the thing is, I think it can make a movie enjoyable while watching, but a movie will never become, an all-time classic that way. And the second thing is, I mean, like you said, you take a bad character and have a great actor, and they elevate them up to an okay character. I mean, that's kind of the limit they can do. But if you take, like, even like if the characters are written decent, like a decent character, you get a really good actor on that, and that character can become a great character.
Right.
But if you're starting with like a blank slate, a character with no personality, they can only do so much.
Right. Unless they, improv.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I don't feel like the MonsterVerse has really provided the foundation for these characters that some actors kind of need and absorb. I mean, some actors in films get these huge booklets of in-depth details of their character, and they can really embody that character. I don't know if any of these actors, maybe aside from Serizawa, really have been able to do anything like that.
What do y'all? What is the name of the guy that plays the main male lead in Godzilla King of the Monsters? I forgot his name.
Kyle Chandler.
No, maybe it might just be that he's a good actor, but I did sympathize for his character in King of the Monsters, and I think that there's enough there that potentially he is in this new movie. He could potentially be a highlight if they push further on that. And I mean, you could also talk about Millie Bobby Brown, but again, it all depends on if they give them stuff to work with. Mm-hmm. Now, honestly, I don't know about y'all, but from what I've seen of these trailers, it really seems like there's actually, like, again, there's definitely going to be more human scenes than monster scenes, but considering the runtime of this film is an hour and 53 minutes, I really feel like there's going to be a lot less human scenes than we've seen so far. I think with how much monster scenes we've seen just in the trailers, and the fact that, there's rumors of like a final fight being 5 minutes straight of Godzilla versus Kong with no cutaways. Oh, wow. I don't know if y'all heard that. If that actually happened, like, there's a lot of monster fighting in this movie. Because, like, not to mention the one we shall not mention, and the flying bat creatures and all that. Like, there's more than just Godzilla versus Kong in this movie. Yeah. So I really think that the human characters... I think that in this movie of anything, the human characters don't actually matter as much as they would even in the last MonsterVerse movies. I think they just need to get the plot moving along at a quick pace.
Yeah.
I wonder if they will reference Kyle Chandler's role at all. He's one of the only actors who has ever been in a Godzilla... I think he might be the only actor who has ever been in a Godzilla movie and a King Kong movie that aren't from the same universe. Because he was in Peter Jackson's King Kong.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yes, I remember seeing that.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I was gonna ask. Do you think he'll be typecast?
He just acts in all the American monster movies from now on. Now I don't know. I enjoyed from what I saw of him in King of the Monsters, and I do think that the little brief stuff I saw in the trailer could be interesting, but they also do have quite a big cast in Godzilla vs. Kong, which, again, with this and the early reactions makes me entirely believe none of these characters will have any real depth. Probably the most depth we'll get out of any character was it probably actually Kong. From some of these teasers, Kong knows sign language now.
Yeah.
And he seemed like... the sadness in his face when he sees, like in that one teaser, when he sees that he's on a fake Skull Island, like, they've really done that well. Like, obviously, I can assume we're all here on the Brozilla podcast rooting for Godzilla. But at the same time, they're doing a really good job of making Kong a sympathetic character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say this. If they weren't going the whole route of Godzilla's kind of gone rogue, gone evil, I would probably be on Team Kong. But the kid in me, knowing that this Godzilla is kind of, at least from the trailers, we're seeing him actually destroy the city and stuff, that I've got to be on his side for that.
He's causing mayhem, wanton destruction. I'm with him.
Yeah, Will's like, if Godzilla's a good guy, I want Kong to win. But if Godzilla's destroying everything, well, I mean, I gotta root for him now.
If Godzilla's acting like Godzilla, then I'm Team Godzilla. If Godzilla's acting like Gamera, then I'm Team Kong.
I was just about to say that. At some point we have to have a full podcast on Will breaking down why Godzilla 2014 is just Gamera Guardians of the Universe.
Hey.
Yes, we should do that at some point, because it is, and if you've never made those connections, watch both films back to
You're
back.
not a real kaiju fan, and you should just revoke your card.
Hey, can I copy your homework?
I mean, it was a good homework to copy.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
Yes.
Even Roger Ebert loved that movie.
Yeah, I remember watching the Roger Ebert tearing down Godzilla 1998. That makes me happy. Either way, I'm gonna run through a couple more of these little things. I'm just gonna read them out. This next guy says, I've seen Godzilla vs. Kong, and it is grade A awesome. The monster brawls are badass and beautiful. Huge fights, all well designed and super gnarly. Solid story. Interesting. Strong cast, really good score. A true midnight monster movie and favorite of the 4 modern Godzilla Kong movies. So here they said there was a solid story and a strong cast. With strong cast, we already knew. Solid story probably means... For me, probably means like around the level of Godzilla 2014. Like it does its job, but it's nothing to write home about. Godzilla vs. Kong is fun, vibrant, action-packed, and energizing. GVK lives up to the heavyweight match it advertised with amazing visual effects and action sequences. This movie is selling a spectacle, and that's exactly what audiences will get. That's all I'm going to read. That's basically what they go over.
It's, if I may, with me, monster movies, it's like, if it's good, that's great, but as long as they're entertaining, I'm sold, you know? Like, sometimes you don't want to watch an Emmy Award-winning, like, Oscar-winning performance. Maybe sometimes you just want to watch, something tear another thing apart, or, like, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I think it's hard to get a monster movie wrong, but I also think it's hard to make a great monster movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it is very easy for you to throw 2 creatures together and have them duke it out. That's easy. Outside of that, I think that's where some of these films fall apart.
Writing a good story.
But I'm sold in a monster movie if I get my popcorn fight.
Right. Like, making a monster movie, it's easy. Making a good story around that movie isn't.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really well said.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, sometimes you don't need a story. Sometimes you don't need, we don't need to watch The Godfather or Schindler's List. maybe we want Mike Tyson knocking a guy out in 90 seconds. That's fun.
Yeah.
And so when you bring that, and then you have, instead of humans, you got giant monsters with destroying the city, that could be pretty entertaining. And the thing is, especially with fights, there's a reason fights are in almost all type of story, because fights are kind of like in our nature. So like fights, now the best fights tell a story within the fights. That's where like stuff like pro wrestling gets its entire, that's how they operate. So if you're really talking about like a great monster movie, so a great monster movie can get away with not even having an amazing, main plot if you have the story told through the actions and the fighting of the monsters. Because, and again, this is something I definitely recommend. I know Tyler watches a little bit, but pro wrestling teaches you a lot about how you can tell a story through the fight with no words.
Mm-hmm.
And it's if they can pull that off, I think the best Godzilla movies, to be honest, do pull that off. And I kind of think that's probably where Godzilla King of the Monsters is a strong suit for me, because I think if you cut out all the human scenes, you still have some sort of story here that's pretty, like, comparable. You have a battle over the crown.
Yeah.
I think I've mainly got my point across.
Yeah.
But I think that Godzilla vs. Kong, I definitely think, from what I can tell, is going to win on that point. which I'd say it would be a good time to go ahead and move on to our main topic of the podcast. So, to quickly, to quickly summarize how this is going to work, each episode of the podcast, we will be going in order, starting from the original Godzilla film, and going up till we've seen every Godzilla film. We've had an episode for each one. And we're going to do that. We're starting now with Godzilla 1954. Example, next episode will be Godzilla Raids Again. Then King Kong versus Godzilla, etc. And we're just going to go ahead and watch them each week, give our thoughts. Some of them, for example, I have not seen some of the Godzilla films. There's about 5 I have not seen. I believe y'all both have seen every film.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Yep.
So it'll be, honestly, a few of them will be new experiences for me, but most of it will be us rewatching films that we may have not watched in a minute, and kind of giving our, I guess, new thoughts, and as well as, maybe analyzing them a little bit, especially with today's episode. We're going to be going over Godzilla 1954, and as a bonus, we're also going to be covering the Godzilla King of the Monsters adaptation that came out in 1956. And with that being said, does anybody have any opening statements on this film?
Can I go first?
Yes.
Go
yes.
ahead.
Sorry, sound like a student in school. May I use the bathroom? When it comes to the original 1984 film, it's you look at it differently compared to every other monster film, not only in that genre, but every movie in the series. It's not a monster movie in the traditional sense. It's disaster. It's a tragedy. Like, when you usually see monster rampages scene, you just, you get pumped. It's exciting. It's thrilling. You're on the edge of the seat. But here, like, you feel a great sense of dread. Like the way they give. Of course, everyone knows that this film was inspired by not only the Lucky Dragon incident, but the bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The way they use Godzilla as a metaphor for the atomic bomb, since they experienced it firsthand. It's powerful, like the way they show his rampage, the way they show people suffering. It's practically haunting, really.
Yeah. It's definitely it's definitely the darkest film in the series, and it's definitely the most important film in the series. Like, I feel, and it's kind of hard to recommend this to modern audiences, but this is the one film, if I could get everybody to watch and actually, like, not just watch the film, but actually understand and pay attention and understand. I mean, this is the most important film, if that makes sense. This film has the most to say, and whether you enjoy the other films or not, I find it hard to disagree that this film, obviously it started it all, but more than that, I mean, this film was a product of its time that shows a country trying to grapple with the losses and the horrors it had faced. And I think that it greatly succeeds at that. And I believe it's one of the, like, even past kaiju films or anything, it's one of the greatest films I've ever seen.
It's like, when you watch this film, like, say watch the rampage scene watch the rampage scene of this film, and then just watch the trailer from Godzilla vs. Kong. It's hard to believe that the series is still going, and the tone has changed so drastically. Mm-hmm. You still get that message, oh, he's a creature lost from time, he's just as much as a victim of the bomb as Japan was, and, these weapons are devastating, don't mess with nature. Like, you get that sense, but you don't get that same feeling of dread and melancholy.
Yeah, there's something. This the overall tone of this film, which is definitely it helped by the cinematography. I think the cinematography is very underrated in this film. The score, of course, Akira Ifukube, great score. It's so great that people are still tearing into every new Godzilla film that doesn't feature it. It's all combined into like, okay, I think there's one scene that perfectly encapsulates how this film hits you, and I think it's when you have this this woman holding her two children like behind an alley, and she like they're scared obviously, and they're crying. Godzilla's been rampaging through the city, and I believe she says something along the lines of don't worry, we'll be with Daddy soon," which is implied that he died in the atomic bombing, and then they're essentially meeting the same fate. And that moment, every time it gets to me, really does like pull at me. And on top of that, I think there's another scene with an actor. I forgot the specific. I believe his brother gets crushed during the village attack scene. Mm-hmm. And I remember him screaming out for his brother, like, was some of the best acting I've seen, period. And it was just raw emotion. And like with a lot of these old Godzilla films, you see very basic or corny acting, especially like in the Showa era, not counting, like, there's a few exceptions, I think, but generally like the acting, it's nothing to write home about. I think seeing how real and raw that felt, I could really feel it felt real, and I think part of it is because these were emotions that people in Japan at that time were really in tune with.
The fact that the woman just flat out kind of admitted to her children that they're probably gonna die, it's just like a dagger to the heart,
Yeah, there are definitely some moments in this film that make your stomach hurt and your heart sink a little bit. Like, the one that always gets me is after Godzilla's attack on Tokyo, when they're in the hospital and the daughter's just screaming and crying. That always makes me want to start crying, honestly. I mean, and like you guys mentioned before, the village attack and then the Will Be with Father Soon, those were two other scenes I'd made notes about, but there's just such emotion in this film that you feel.
Part of what really helps bring this movie to life for me is the music. Like, the way it's recorded, like, even the uplifting music, it doesn't feel like right. It feels, ominous, Like, even the music...
It's like a calm before the storm. It's like this isn't really, like, it's like... It's almost like you're kind of pushing it to the back of your head. Like, you hear that theme and it's kind of happy, but it's like... Like, I think a perfect example is the military theme. The military theme does this thing where it's like,
yeah, it feels triumphant.
Yeah, but really, it's like false confidence. It's like they're trying their best. This is Japan's best, and then immediately you just see it. You see what happens to it. I mean, that theme is a notable one, but there's some other ones as well. I definitely see what you're talking about with that.
Yeah, and with that military theme, I don't know if you know or not, but before Ifukube worked on Godzilla with Toho, he actually composed music for the Japanese military, and that was, of course, it was composed a little differently, but that was one of the military themes he composed for the Japanese militia.
Oh, wow.
And
like,
honestly, that makes so much sense because it does feel like very authentic in that way.
Yeah. One track I find notable is like the music that's on the cruise ship. It sounds, you hear the ukulele, but it doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel like, this is genuinely going to be a fun moment, It feels, disingenuine. That's the best word I could say for it. Disingenuine. Like, they're trying to cover up the fact that strategy can come up at any moment.
Yeah, for sure. This is, and all of this, we haven't even really talked about the main plot, which I would say, I mean, it's not like there's a lot of competition, let's be honest, but definitely some of the best human characters in any of the Toho Godzilla films. Now, do these characters... I think these characters are not characters in the way of they have very interesting personality traits or that type of thing. I think these characters do a good job of expressing, again, the theme of the film and what's going on. And what it was like at that era of Japan. Particularly... I mean... You even have this little love triangle here. But the love triangle, like, while being an element of the story that's interesting, it does not overstay its welcome. Like, it's so like it's so good about that you don't really like. If when I say that, there's probably some people listening to this being like, was there a love triangle in there? And it's like, yeah, there was, but it made sure not to override the main point of the film. And I think that Dr. Serizawa's character is the crutch in this whole thing. Maybe Dr. Yamane has a very important role as well. But you have Dr. Yamane talking about like the contrast of like nature and you know the innocence of this creature that technically doesn't this creature is as much of a victim as we are. And then in the same contrast you have Dr. Serizawa who's struggling with bringing another world-shattering weapon into the fray. And that's the last thing he wants to do. After experiencing the atomic bombs, this country does not want to create something even worse.
Well, I don't recall if he was there when Hiroshima and Nagasaki happened, but I do recall he experienced the Pacific conflict himself. That's how he lost his eye. Gunshot.
Oh, okay. So I should say I don't want to mean that he directly experienced it, but like this country as a whole, has been suffering through it.
Oh, right.
But I see what you're saying. I did not know that. So he was in the military. Is something a detail I missed.
Yeah.
I don't think I even know that. Why he had an eye patch.
I'm not gonna
I will
lie.
admit, he's definitely a character that's grown on me throughout the years. I didn't like Serizawa as a kid, but I'm sure a lot of people didn't because, okay, hang on. Spoiler alert for a film that's almost 70 years old, but, alright, let's give people a second just in case they've not seen it, even though we're reviewing it right now. He kills Godzilla at the end of the film. Of course, he sacrifices himself, but
Are you... wait, really?
You son of a... I'll strangle you for this?
Man.
And of course, even as... this wasn't my first Godzilla film, but I still liked Godzilla. Even though, he's killing people, Tokyo and everything, I had a little disdain for Serizawa growing up because he killed Godzilla. But, now that I've grown up and I can appreciate the story for what it is, he really has evolved into one of my favorite characters across the films. Because his story really is as tragic as Godzilla's is. And that's such a cool parallel.
He's a very, at first, like an off-putting character. Like, he's very reserved and he doesn't want to deal with anybody. And it kind of seems like at first he's just kind of a jerk. But really, he's like... He's got so much he's dealing with, and then on top of that, like you're talking, I was mentioning the brief love triangle part, but it's kind of that's even tragic in itself. That like the woman that he's supposed to marry, like as much as like you understand her, is it Emiko? You understand Emiko. You also feel bad for Serizawa that this is the person he was supposed to marry. And she doesn't even want to really... It's not that she doesn't want to be around him, but it's like another small detail that even though he never truly like is told about it from what I can tell, I'm sure he understood what was going on, and I think that just adds more to the tragedy. And probably, I don't know, his story in general is rough, and the fact that he wanted to go down with his weapon to the point where he cuts the wire when they pull the wire up. That it hits pretty hard. The end of the movie as a whole. It's kind of I'm kind of at a loss for words right now. But in summary, I mean, there's not much I can detract from this film. You could go with the effects, but the effects were certainly great at the time, and still hold up for me in some ways now. And beyond that, there's not a lot. It's not a film that's extremely long. I wouldn't even say it's hard to get through. I would say, compared to other Godzilla films, it's not very rewatchable. But you can sit down for 90 minutes and experience this film, and it's not going to, it's going to make you feel things, and it's not going to necessarily be a very uplifting experience, but it's certainly an experience I say, especially if you're a Godzilla fan, but even if you just have some slight interest and or happen to be listening to this, clearly you should watch it. I think we all agree on that.
Right. Like the end of the film, it doesn't feel like a victory at all. It feels more like an omen for what could happen to humanity in the future.
Yeah. And we'll get to it soon enough, but I feel like that's where Godzilla Raids again kind of is insulting in a way where it kind of just like dunks on this whole story and kind of and again, that's something we'll get to later. But one thing we should, if y'all have some final thoughts on the original 1954 film, go ahead and get those out of the way. But after that, we should go ahead and discuss the adaptation with Raymond Burr.
Not a thought, but I want to tell a story. It's behind the scenes stories. Producer Tomoyuki Tanaka was arrested during production.
He was arrested?
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's what happened. He and one of the special effects supervisors were on top of a roof of a shopping center, and they were scouting out locations for Japan. They were talking about what set pieces to have, what buildings that Godzilla would destroy. They're like, oh, the capital should definitely be torn apart, whatnot. And while that's happening, a security guard overheard them and took him into custody.
Oh, you think the capital should be destroyed now, do you? Okay.
My country, you don't.
Yeah. I mean, especially with what they went through, as much as that's a funny story, I can also imagine even, 9 years after what happened, the tensions are still high in this country. And let's be honest, at this point, especially before the World War ended, this country was not a very good country, for lack of a better term.
It wasn't.
They had it was dark times for Japan.
Right. And, the threat, someone destroying, anything in Japan at that time, it's like, you're definitely going to be aggressive about it. You're going to be completely on defense mode.
Yeah, that's a again, that is, I do think that's kind of a funny story, but it's also I can't imagine going through what happened there. But Will, do you have any final thoughts before we move on to King of the Monsters?
Yeah, just real fast. Another parallel that I thought was really interesting for this film to have was having and I'm spacing on his name right now, but the zoologist or the paleontologist in the
Dr.
film.
Yamane.
Dr. Yamane, yeah.
I really liked his character arc too, and just his whole thought process of, don't kill Godzilla. Godzilla is the only creature we've ever seen of this magnitude. And the one line that stood out to me this time that I don't think I'd ever caught on to before is he says, "Why don't we study his resistance to the radiation?" And I don't know why, but that hit hard this time around rewatching it. It's so much to where I typed it out and made it a point to bring up, but I just thought that was... I don't know how I never caught that before, but that really stood out to me as another line.
Is that sort of something you feel was almost like a connection to the people who had been suffering from this radiation, and something that they would like to learn because of the trauma they felt?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, that reminds me of one small thing. I'm not sure if y'all know this, but the reason Godzilla's skin is the way it is to reflect the scarring
Yeah, that's the next point I was actually going to move on to. So, perfect.
Well,
yeah, that definitely was an interesting aspect of its design. And then the only other thing I'll say for this is I don't know if you guys have seen Hail to the King or not, the documentary that Kyle Yount did, but they touch on the pack. They did some interviews with some of the people involved with this, and they said there's a scene during Tokyo's destruction to where Godzilla destroys a movie theater, and it was said in the documentary that some of the people watching the movie were actually in that theater watching the film, and they ran out of the theater in fear because of how realistic it was back then.
I heard that. I do remember that story. It kind of reminds me of the story of the first film, where it's just like a 3-minute film where a train comes at the screen and everyone tried to move out of the way. But like at this point, like movies had been a thing for such a while, but like I can kind of see, like, again, like talking about the state of the country's in, you see the theater that you're in being destroyed by a monster, and I mean, it's laughable now to think that that would happen, or like they would freak out about that. But you know, it's hard to be in their shoes. But yeah, I think as a whole that kind of covers this little bit. Not that ratings matter much. I gave this a 10 out of 10, but that was just, I mean, I felt giving it any less felt kind of a disservice personally. Let's see. Okay, well, I guess we could go ahead and talk about the adaptation, which probably we won't discuss quite as long. But what I should say is I kind of came into this being like, of the opinion that, oh man, this adaptation just trashed on such a great movie. But really, after watching it again, while I definitely think it loses some of the heart and some of the the tragedy of the original film, it's not, I wouldn't call it disrespectful, and I would say that personally it's still a good monster flick, and it still carries the themes of the original, if not a bit watered down.
Mm-hmm. So would I be correct to assume that this version of the film was all of ours first exposure to the original film, period?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting thought, because I mean, this would have been the second Godzilla movie I had ever seen in my life. Would have been the King of the Monsters cut of the movie.
Yeah, I have a lot of nostalgia.
Obviously, it's very obvious now what scenes they added for Raymond Burr, but back then I couldn't tell.
There's this one scene I will say that where he's supposed to be talking to Dr. Yamane, and they have the Japanese actor who is obviously not Dr. Yamane face away from the camera, and he shakes his hand, and it's kind of like it's kind of silly. I'll say Raymond Burr, he kind of cracks me up. Like he holds his own, like that as a character, as an actor. He holds his own, and I find him to be likable at the least. And that scene especially was kind of funny. It's funny to see him where this guy is talking to like no one almost this entire film, besides that one like Navy captain or admiral they add in just so like he can have someone to talk to. And then I swear there was some like bromance going on with them, where like there was this one scene like when Godzilla comes over the hill, his head comes over the hill, I swear he holds on to that admiral's hip for like 30 seconds as they look up in awe, and then he picks him up because the admiral had like broken his leg or something, and it was just like it's pretty funny. But yeah, no,
I'd ship it.
yeah, I think he did a good job. I'd ship it.
Yeah, it is kind of funny to think that most of his co-stars for that film would have filmed their scenes 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Here's the way I look at this film. I pretty much imagine it as a outsider's view of the situation. Like, in a way, it's like how do I describe it? Like, in a way, it's kind of like describing the events of Hiroshima and Nagasaki for us Americans in a way. Or any of the horrors the Japanese experienced at the time. Like, an outside viewer's look inside, you know?
That's pretty fair. Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. Like, you kind of have him looking over it. One thing that kind of just came to mind that I don't want to lose is that the thought that the opening of this film, maybe it's due to nostalgia, because I have the opening nostalgia where the like that little track is playing as like they go over the dead city, and then you see Raymond Burr reach over to the dead body, and then he just passes out. Like, that scene, I did really enjoy. I really enjoyed that opening as much as, I think it was a good, in storytelling, it's always good to have a hook at the beginning of it. And I think if there's anything that I would say is sort of an improvement, and I kind of, it hurts to say it, I would say that's probably an improvement on the original. Just because it kind of gives you, like, so, okay, something destroyed that city and did that, and what is it?
Yeah.
And I do think the original kind of has enough of a hook as its own at the time. Like, you have, like, just the stomps and the lore, like, is enough to kind of tell you something's not going right here. But I do really love that opening with the King of the Monsters version.
I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah, that was a note I had made as well, that I almost prefer that opening. And, thinking about it from the American perspective, you had King Kong in 1933 to where, he went on a bit of a rampage in New York, but New York was still standing at the end of the day. And then you had the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms to where, he destroyed the theme park or whatnot. And starting out this film with the destruction of an entire city, I think is a fantastic way of, okay, now what did this? I want to know what did this.
You could almost say it looks like an atomic bomb was dropped on that city. Which, I say that kind of jokingly, but also I believe that was definitely the implication.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What was it? One thing. Okay, so yes. So now that we covered it all, we're all in 100% agreement. The Godzilla King of the Monsters American adaptation is far superior to the original 1954 version.
Burn the heretic.
No, but I'd say, I think it's a reasonable adaptation. I understand. Obviously, I would not recommend anyone nowadays to watch that first, but it's certainly something worth checking out if you want a different look on the film. And I think that, it's actually shorter too. So,
yeah.
Which, again, is part of the problem, but also it kind of gives you, it's almost like a how should I say it? It's almost like a Mystery Science Theater, except for the guy's actually there and it's not funny. How about that? Does that make sense? It's kind of like it's a commentary. It's like a commentary when you hear like someone, like you watch a commentary on like a show, like or something like that, like where they summarize the show and then analyze it.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's kind of like it's kind of like watching that.
That kind of goes back to
when you haven't watched a show.
That kind of goes back to what I said earlier about, an outsider's view. Like, it's pretty much him telling the world about what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do love. There's a few scenes that are very like where he's like talking into the mic, and he's trying to explain to these people from America.
I'm saying a prayer.
What he's seeing.
A prayer for the whole world.
Yeah, honestly, that quote is pretty memorable in my mind. And then I think he says something about the tragic innocence of of Godzilla at the end of it, and there's a few lines he has in there that are really good. It is just weird that he's kind of this that awkward guy standing in the corner and recording his little tape while everybody the rest of the movie's going on. But they did what they could, and as I've expressed to y'all before, I think this is far superior to what the original Gamera American adaptation did.
Oh boy.
Where instead of incorporating the Americans into the story, they just would cut away to like an American like talk show host talk about, oh man, do you see that giant turtle there? That's pretty crazy.
Like, from what I've heard, Raymond Burr actually has a great respect for the original Godzilla film. Immense respect.
He came back in the in Godzilla 1985, which was the American version of Godzilla 1984, which is Will's Godzilla favorite Godzilla movie.
He originally refused to be in it. He originally refused to be in the 1984 version, 85 version, because the original script made it more of a comedy. He thought it was incredibly disrespectful to the character.
Yeah.
And
some people still believe that the version that came out still kind of goofed on it a little too much. Like I remember there's a line where the guy's like, "That's some renovation plan they had there." Speaking of, that is one of the movies I have not actually seen. I have not seen Godzilla 1984/5, which I'll probably. I don't know if I want to watch both versions, but when we get to it, I guess I might go ahead and watch both versions so we can do a similar thing as we did here. If I can find both versions, because I know they're not going to be quite as easy to find.
I don't know. I might be sick for that episode.
If you're going to watch it, bring a can of Dr. Pepper with you, okay?
Yes. Hey, for those at home, it's Godzilla 1984 is not actually Will's favorite Godzilla movie. It is, in fact, quite the opposite.
Really?
Just so you can get the humor. I don't know if you ever made your list, Tyler, but we send it in to each other on our personal messaging. But we listed our favorite Godzilla movies, and Will had told me already. But otherwise, I would probably be shocked because I know there's some people who are huge stands of that movie, particularly Goji Fan 93, who not sure where he is. If you're listening, Goji Fan 93, you're welcome on the podcast. You can make your reappearance. It's fine.
We miss you, buddy.
Definitely huge fans here. Honestly speaking, like.
Yeah, he's definitely. Gonna be happy after I riffed on him at the beginning of this, but what's a more fitting way to open in this podcast?
Riffing on D-Man 1954.
Yes, probably. I was watching a video of his today. Either way, that's a random thought. Any final thoughts on the Raymond Burr Godzilla King of the Monsters 1956 film?
It's
starring
I could be
Raymond
mistaken on this, but it was something that always confused me growing up when I learned that there was a Japanese cut. In the King of the Monsters, did they remove the scene of Godzilla at the aviary? When he's behind the bird cage, is that a scene that was removed from King of the Monsters?
I think it is. Now that you say that, I think it is.
Yeah.
I
would love to know the reasoning behind that. Because, I mean, I understand some of the things they removed. Obviously, tensions are high. You don't... they viewed the film as propaganda here. You don't exactly want to incorporate all of the atomic bomb stuff, but that's... Because I remember seeing the case at a Barnes & Noble or whatever for the 54 version and seeing that and going, I've never seen that. What is that?
I know why.
Sorry. I mean, birds, it was too unrealistic. I mean, birds aren't real, obviously, so, like, why would they have
No,
it in
you
the
both
film?
got it wrong. The birds were in the way of the shot.
Oh, it was an unintentional shot. Okay.
Yeah, the birds weren't supposed to be there.
They were correcting it. I see, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've established the Raymond Burr cut. It's like the Snyder cut of Justice League. It's a much superior version of the film.
It's like the anti-Snyder cut.
Okay. My final thought, it's better than Godzilla, that's for sure.
Yep. And I think we have one more segment to do on the show. Briefly describe it. This is going to be a segment called Pitch Meeting. It's going to be one, but most likely non-kaiju related pitch, where one or two of us is going to pitch to someone who has not played a particular series or done a particular thing, watch a particular movie. So, that being said, me and Tyler are both pretty huge. I would say, I'm not sure how huge of a fan you consider yourself, Tyler, but I'm definitely in love with Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance.
Yeah, baby.
Might be one of my favorite. Yeah, whether I think that the internet definitely had its fun with it, but I think that it's a game that Tyler, have you played any of the other Metal Gear games?
I have not, unfortunately, but I know the backstory, with the Patriots and whatnot.
Yeah.
But
for me, it's the same. I know a rough idea of what happened in the other ones, but this was my first game. As I like character action and 3D action games, or whatever you want to call them, hack and slashers.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite genre of video games. This game definitely filled that itch by a long shot. And so we're going to go ahead, and as spoiler-free as possible, we're going to explain to Will why he should play Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance.
You want to go first?
Alrighty. And I guess I could preface real fast. I don't really have any experience with Metal Gear at all. It's kind of a series I've avoided because I've heard it was a more stealth-oriented. I'm not a big fan of stealth games. I think I played about 30 minutes of Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain or something like that, and then I think I turned off my PlayStation and went to bed. So that's kind of my experience. Well, and I played a little bit of the original for the Super Nintendo.
And what's interesting is I've heard Metal Gear Solid Phantom Pain is one of the greatest, at least the gameplay-wise, is one of the greatest stealth games of all time. So that really shows that, and I'm not a big stealth person either. But what I'll start with is, in Metal Gear Rising, there is stealth, but it's very optional. Which means that and the stealth is, I don't know, have you played a Spider-Man PS4?
Yep.
Yeah, I have.
Okay. It's pretty similar to that, I would almost say, except for in Spider-Man PS4, you can fight, but you're not as tanked out, I guess you would say. In this, if you know the combat system, when you get caught, it really doesn't matter, which for some people is a downside, but for someone like we're discussing are not big fans of stealth, you can go in and you'll go get those like in Spider-Man PS4, it's a good example where you have the stealth kills where you jump down and knock them out. And this is very similar. You're playing as Raiden, who's a cyborg, by the way. This is a cyborg world, basically.
Cyborg ninja.
It takes place. Yes, this takes place after the Metal Gear series, so it doesn't really spoil you on the rest of it.
It takes place after the fourth game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess the fifth game. Well, yeah, the fourth game was the last in the timeline, though.
Yeah.
So. As far as I know, because the fifth game takes place before. Well, whatever. We're not getting to Metal Gear. Metal Gear's has too messed up of a timeline for us to worry about that right now. Essentially, it's a spin-off that doesn't if they make more Metal Gear games, they said that this is going to be a different universe, which is why I was really hoping for a sequel. But we'll get to that later. Yeah, the stealth. You have those very simple stealth mechanics. And you're always usually from a higher angle, which I believe the director said is because they wanted to ride in the field not like a snake who's being tactical, but more of a predator who's hunting. But when you get discovered, it's immediate fight time, because really the game knows that you're not trying to play stealth, and if you do complete stealth missions, it'll reward you a little bit for it. But really, that's not the point. You can run right into a mission. In most missions, until you get to the harder difficulties, you don't really need the stealth. So that's my first point, is what I'll bring up, just based on your personal preferences on why you should play.
Okay, my point. The game is very political, but in a way, it's not you got to pick one side. But it's more of an eye-opener, really. You're main politics behind it, it's the reason why we fight wars. And when you look at it, you're Oh, damn, I never thought of it that way. But at the same time, the game does not take itself that seriously.
Yes, that's true. It's kind of like there are some moments that are very like relevant and very like the type of shock you get when you find yourself somewhat agreeing with what the main villain says in some of his things is interesting, but at the same time, and I don't want to go into it because I want to leave you as unspoiled as possible for this.
Sure.
Because Tyler, if Tyler will know, if you come into this unspoiled, it'll definitely catch you off guard, who it is. But he's a very interesting character in both a very goofy way, like Tyler said, it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like don't expect your physics to be fairly realistic in this game. We'll say that. If you have any questions on why or how something works, just remember they're cyborgs, and that's your answer. But that being said, the cutscenes are very fun. There's a lot of goofy moments, but there is some decent like political commentary, which the Metal Gear series, as far as I know, is known for. So it's kind of keeping in tradition in that way. But also, the next thing I'm going to add on is probably one of the best boss like casts and boss fights lineups in general, like in any game. Like you have so many memorable boss fights mechanically and
Personality wise.
you know they. Yes. And then on top of that, even further, the themes, the music.
Oh my god, the music. It's peak video game music. Like, here's the funny thing about the composer for this game. Guess what he worked on prior to this? Guess.
I'm assuming something very not similar at all to Metal Gear. Maybe a children's game or show or something
He
like
worked
that?
on 2 sci-fi original films, SS Doom Trooper and Boa vs. Python.
I did not know that. That's funny.
I mean, okay, you go from like not even a B grade movie, a C grade movie, to this. You would never guess, and it's just so. Like, if you're gonna have like, let me just say, any one of these main boss themes are good enough to be a final boss theme.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
The music definitely makes a game for me, so that's definitely intriguing.
By the way, Tyler, I don't know if you've heard there's a couple themes that play. They're not even boss themes. They just play during certain moments in the story during you're fighting the enemies. And like the one of them I found was Dark Skies that I had sent you earlier.
That's my favorite.
I love that theme.
It's my favorite.
It's not even a boss theme.
It's my favorite of the casual combat themes.
Yes, for sure. So one thing this is, I guess, this is not a spoiler as much as it's kind of just to illustrate our point further. I'm not going to tell you about any of the boss fights specifically, but what I should tell you is how the bosses, they're kind of like in stages. There's like, boss fights, in stages in video games isn't revolutionary, but when you fight the boss at first, you get your opening music cue, you get whatever cutscene that's building it up, you're getting hyped. In general, the genre is heavy electric metal rock, something like that. Like it's the type of thing where people write it off sometimes because it sounds very over the top and cheesy, but it fits the game so well. It's so in line with like the cyborgs, ninja, like crazy stuff. And then you get this music going, and you're playing, and it times so well with all the things all the fighting. You're getting into it. Then the next stage, you'll have some sort of break or something that breaks up the stage, and then you're fighting again, and it's getting even more hype. But finally, once the climax of the fight comes, that's when the vocals kick in, and they always kick in at the right time. That like you get like you got the goosebumps, the chills are going, and you're in the zone. Like it complements the gameplay so much. And there's a few specific moments I'm thinking of, particularly an opening moment. I'll just go ahead and just for Tyler, I think Tyler knows what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
But the Rules of Nature moment is so good, and I would like you to be able to play this unspoiled because I feel like almost everybody's been spoiled by memes from it. but I've watched like I think probably 10 or 20, well maybe 20 is exaggerated. I've watched a lot of people on YouTube just to see their reaction to that moment. And the moment is almost always a big giddy smile and a oh my god. And then and that's all I'm gonna say on that part. The music's great and the bosses are great. That's the 100% the strong suits of this game. And then just some other things.
So I think really the only thing I know about this game, well, actually, I don't even know if this is even from this game. Is this game where the huge jacked dude with the glasses and the suit comes from? Is he from this game?
Yes, but he's a character I'm trying not to talk to you too much about.
Okay.
You've probably seen some memes from him. But, like, I guess the fact that you've seen him kind of will already kind of spoil it, but it's kind of the type of thing where if I tell you more, it'll solidify it in your head, so I'm just not going to say anything and hope that you forget about it till it happens.
Okay.
Okay. One thing I want to point out that's a pop plus, in my opinion. The memes. No, like, outside the game, they're enjoyable, but the memes are a big plot point in game.
Huh.
Yeah, but every time they say memes, like, if you take it out of context, it's so fucking funny.
Exactly.
You're just... Because it's like they'll say something and it makes sense. Because, you know, memes just means, like, something that spreads, like an idea that spreads. That's a technical definition of what a meme is in real life. So, like, a meme is, like, literally could be, like, religion, for example. But, I think that's accurate. But it's a thought process. It's an idea. But whenever they say it, they'll always say out of context. So they'll be like, they'll just say, like, their memes have
We're spreading our
your
memes,
memes
find
have
ourselves.
Yeah, and it's like, or it's like, your memes.
Like,
And those are real lines from the game. But it's like, it's really, like I said, it takes itself, like, or Tyler mentioned, it doesn't take itself too seriously, but also it does have something to say at the same time. One thing I should mention is all of Raiden's lines are great just because he always talks in that voice. That's his voice. It's like that raspy anime, like, edgy voice. You've seen what Raiden looks like. He has the white hair and, like, the he's a cyborg and...
Yeah, I think I know what it
wait,
looks
before we
like.
go any further, Raiden for Smash.
Right? Yeah, he was in a PlayStation All Stars, which I know was a pretty rough game.
It's
but
not the
that's
same,
closest
damn
we've
it.
gotten. It's not the same.
It's like...
Yeah, but...
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Like, this game is the very definition of a cult game. It's like, it's not a game that's very popular, but there's a, community behind it. Think of it like a cult movie, like Tremors, a movie that isn't well known, but it's really damn enjoyable.
What I should say about it, though, is that if you look at it, it sold pretty darn well at the time, and it actually got, like mainly positive reviews. Like, there's very few
just got
reviews
Thanos.
that give it below, like, an 80%. I think that it's more of it's kind of a lost to time type
Does
of
he
thing.
know how to invite
If that makes
himself
sense,
back into the
like, because
call?
it was like
Does he even know
I
if
would
he
say
left
it's
the
probably
call?
the
Probably 'cause his
best
icon just
game of its genre
shrank
on the
and
PlayStation
disappeared,
3
so-
era.
Yeah, I think
Like,
so.
that's my opinion. I think it's better
I'm just
than
gonna
any
keep my
other game of
recording
that
going.
genre
I'm sure
on
you
the
can just play.
PlayStation
Yeah, I got
3
my
era.
recording
But I
going too.
think that a lot of people forgot about it because the PS4,
Oh, no.
it came out in
Oh.
2013.
Ouch, go wow. Oh, there you are.
That was not the right thing to
You
do.
disappeared for a sec. I was scared. I was all alone. Why did you leave me?
Well, I hit call thinking that was going to bring him into the call, but
There he is.
hello?
Oh, okay. So there's some issues there.
Yeah.
I was going on this full rant. I mean, it'll be in the final audio, so we'll just go ahead and I don't know. We'll see what happens. Essentially, I was saying I think it was one of the best games of the PS3 era for it. Especially, I think it would be the best game of the PS3 era for its genre, in my opinion.
Oh, okay.
and that's a big thing to say, but I definitely think it deserves that in my opinion. And I think it mainly was kind of lost to time, as in it came out in 2013, and the next year the PS4 came out, and then you know, like, and especially in that genre, Devil May Cry 5 came out in 2019, and as much as I'm a huge fan of this game, I would definitely say Devil May Cry 5 is probably the perfect character action game. It's like the perfection of that genre. So a lot of people aren't going to be thinking about this game that came out in 2013 at that point.
Can we have a moment of silence for the possibility of a Metal Gear Rising 2 because Konami won't get their collective heads out their own asses?
Oh, man. Yeah, no, that's a... How the game ends, I so wanted a sequel, and then I realized, oh yeah, this game came out in 2013, and it's 2020 right now, and there's blah blah. Now the thing is, they've left it open, and it's almost like a separate entity. Platinum, who made the Bayonetta games and came from the people who made the original Devil May Cry games, to overly simplify that whole deal. Platinum, they make these bangers of that genre. And they made this game, and all it would take would be Konami to sign off to Platinum to make another game and have Kojima oversee it again. That's all it would take. And it's like a really hard deal where they got to get a couple people together. And after that, now I'm not saying that would be as good as the first game, but especially with the current genre, like you got the PS5 coming out now, you know, you got the next gen console. This game has so much potential on these new consoles now with like.
Well.
So yeah.
It's like, well, considering how now the animosity between Kojima and Konami nowadays, and how Konami, did Metal Gear Survive, just ew.
Yeah, and again, I don't know a whole lot about the Metal Gear series. There's been some ups and downs for sure.
Oh, that game was pretty much a generic zombie survival game where you have to pay if you want to make an extra save slot.
Oh, that's great. I like that. So I don't really know. I'm trying to figure out where to wrap up our thoughts on Metal Gear Rising. Essentially, I believe, do you have a PS3 or Xbox 360?
I do have a PS3, but I also know that it is on Steam. It's on sale this weekend. Instead of $30, it's on sale for like $6.
Ooh.
If you have a gaming computer, it'll run. Now here's the thing. Another great thing about this game that I just remembered is on the PS3 it runs at 60 frames per second almost all the time. That's
That's crazy, actually.
Yeah, that's very hard to do. But on the computer, the sky's the limit, I'm sure. I'm sure
especially for a 2013 game, as long as it's optimized okay. I mean, this conversation definitely has me leaning towards going ahead and snagging it for that sale deal.
For $6, for sure. I was going to say you could get it for $25 or $20 for the PS3, no problem. But if you can get it for $6 on a computer that's going to run it even better, there's no reason not to. You're in for an experience. Now, granted, this is not we're talking about Monster Hunter. This is not that type of experience. This is a 8-hour. You're gonna, if you could probably play it in one day if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
Do I suggest it? I'm not sure. It depends if you got the time. But it's an experience. Is what I should say.
I'd say about 16 hours for me. I'm typically slow with games.
One thing I want to point out with this game is, since you get the Steam version, there are mods. And if I recall correctly, there's a Pepsi Man mod for it.
Yeah.
I kid you not, someone made a whole modded version just called Pepsi Man 2.
That's great.
I actually think I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, last thought on Metal Gear Rising. Will, for sure, play that tutorial a couple times and make sure you know how to actually parry. Because that will help you so much.
That'll save your life.
I got to the Blade Wolf fight, and I got stuck so bad on that. Like, I played that like 20 times, because the game's kind of easy at the beginning, and then it finally drops like the first semi-boss in like the second mission, and if you don't know how to parry, you're gonna have a bad time. And I actually saw someone who I was watching the playthrough of who somehow skirted past that one by just trying to run and dodge, because there's no go dodge mechanic. It's all about parrying. It's all about being the aggressor and parrying.
Okay.
So this person was trying to like do the running around in circles, and he somehow got through that fight. But eventually, like, I was just like, you look, he was in for a rough time, and at some point you're gonna have to learn how to parry. Try to do it as soon as possible to save yourself some headaches and some time.
Especially with the monsoon boss fight.
Oh yeah, I don't know how you get to the monsoon boss fight if you don't know how to parry.
Yep.
For me, my most satisfying moment in this game is I played hard mode Jetstream's Jam for the first time playing on hard mode, and because I had mastered the parry so well, and I got a no hit run on him on my first hard mode try against him. Ooh. That was so satisfying.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no, and just not to go in detail, Jetstream Sam is a very attractive man, and he is my favorite. But he is also, on the first time you play him, he's gonna be a pretty hard boss fight. I remember I played him. I didn't have any bonus health packs the first time I played him, so I had basically the normal amount of health, and I played against him like 30 times. So I think by the time I got to hard mode, I had health packs in store, and I had memorized his attack pattern, because he had, like I said, he didn't hit me once in that fight, because I was so like, it's like, for me, I've noticed the bosses that I'm horrible at first, I play so many times that I get really good at them. But then I play against bosses that I beat on normal mode the first time, and I have more trouble with them because I have less experience against that boss, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Either way, Metal Gear Rising, you should stream it. I would be there the whole time if you stream it.
Yeah, that's definitely one I could plan on streaming.
I would stream it, but Twitch isn't really working for me. It's the bit rate issues.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of, are you still streaming other things right now?
Not currently. I'm waiting until I fix
Tyler?
Not currently. I'm waiting until I fix the current issues with my computer.
Okay, well, either way, make sure to go to Tyrant Gojira, which there should be a link here. You're gonna have the name on the video somewhere. Go to his Twitch and follow. And as well as you can see Will at CreationZilla. I believe he streams on YouTube.
Yep, Twitch and YouTube.
Oh, you do both. Okay.
You Twitch.
That's pretty cool. And then I do not stream, but you're likely watching this on the Son of Sibo YouTube channel. If not, go to that YouTube channel. I put out videos when I feel like it. But no, just kidding. I'm working hard on some videos. It's just that life's a little busy right now. But that being said, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up here, boys. I know it's a little sudden, but we are definitely way over the time frame we were looking for.
It happens.
But that being said, I think an hour and a half podcast isn't a bad run time at all.
No, hell no.
Nope, not at all.
Now, I know I tried to plug y'all guys' things, but if you have anything else to put in there before we get we go ahead and wrap it up, now's the time.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty much it for me. I've got my YouTube and I've got my Twitch, and then Creations on Facebook if you want updates for either of those.
Drink your Ovaltine.
Say again.
I thought that was funny.
No, I didn't hear you. I was like trying to figure out what you said.
Oh, I said drink your Ovaltine.
Okay.
Chris's story, no.
Oh, no, I'm...
See, another film I've never seen.
All right. Well,
all right, guys. Well, this was the Brozilla Podcast, where we don't do news. We just talk entertainment. So share and subscribe.
till next time.
And we'll see you guys next year in 1955.
Join us next time in 1955 as we take a look at Godzilla Raids Again. Until then,